Just little hello. My name is Patrick. My full name is Patrick Joseph Barber. I have been doing CrossFit since 2004. Feel like I'm at an AA meeting. But I've been doing CrossFit since 2004. I have taught CrossFit since 2006. I have taught on level 1 seminar staff since 2007, 8, I want to say. I was traveling to seminars in 2007, didn't really jump on staff till 8, 9-ish. But I've been doing this a long time, and there's been many criticizers over the years, and most of them have stopped criticizing. And I think that what happens with CrossFit is that often people don't understand things, and then once somebody finally explains it to them, they get it, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. It may be for them, it may not be for them. I'm not pretending it's for everybody, but they start to understand. Apparently, Jillian Michaels, you don't understand. So let me, without trying to be mean or over the top, let's try to watch your most recent video, and let's just see if we can get you to understand. Okay. Let's go into it. I have my phone here that I'm going to do it on because it seems to be the only way I can record it and make it work.
For you guys on the elements of CrossFit that I don't love. And you might think, haven't we been over this? And I thought we've been over this in spades, but I was noticing a lot of questions coming to me in my app forums about CrossFit and sometimes in the comments on these videos about it. So I figured can't hurt to do.
First off, I love the cement house you've got. You're like pillars and stuff in the background, fantastic. Like the style looks good, clean, minimalist look, industrial, awesome. I'm gonna keep going though.
A video on it. Look, I am not trying to bash anybody, but when asked a question, I'm gonna answer it with my personal opinion. Now,
That's good. So she prefaces everything with and you preface everything with, I'm not going to try to bash anything. I'm going to answer something from my personal opinion. And personal opinion, I mean, that's one thing. And then I think that's great. You got your personal opinion on stuff. And generally when someone says that, they're probably going to give opinion that's might not be favorable. And that's okay. Like you can have an unfavorable opinion as long as you we're talking about the same thing and you understand what we're talking about. So let's see if that's the case as we go through it.
Opinion in fitness is based on years of working in fitness and working with individuals who I believe are the best of the best. So when I tell you it's an opinion, it isn't just random, I don't like this. It's based on things that I have learned about and put through paces over decades to see what works, what doesn't.
So that's still an opinion. It's an opinion based off of your understanding or your facts that you have or your experience, but it's still an opinion. So I think what you were trying to say is that it's not an opinion based on nothing. It's an opinion based on your point of view and your experience. So cool. All right. Great. Given some background.
And why. All right. So first of all, what don't I like? Well, you're taking some of the most advanced fitness modalities in the world. Gymnastics, Olympic lifts, for example. These are for elite athletes, right? And, hence the term Olympic lifts.
Yeah. So she's going to go into talking about, gymnastics being an elite thing, Olympic lifting being an elite thing. But I think that, if you really take a step back, really anything can be done in an elite level in terms of sport. Both of those things fall into sport, and they're not classically considered fitness, right? So you look at sport being like football, baseball, soccer, cycling, things like that, and you don't classically think of those as fitness. You think you can use fitness to do those things, which is why it's kind of easier to separate out, I think, for her, this idea of you've got the elite, and then you've got, you know, just doing it in your own space. And nobody like says, hey, I'm never going to play football because I'm not a professional. Nobody ever says, hey, I'm not going to go cycling because I'm not on the Tour de France. At the end of the spectrum, they're incredibly elite and difficult and over the top and take so much precision and skill and technique. But on a very basic level, gymnastics just refers to something that is done, a movement that's done with your body weight. And, you know, we've incorporated gymnastics movements and the Olympic lifting movements into our fitness program. So I think it's kind of hard to make that separation of like, these are elite, but they can be done at a very basic level. And I think that the reason that she finds them so not good to put into a fitness program is because they can be complex. But the argument would be that the complexity is why we have them in the fitness program, because fitness programs shouldn't just be about giving you a sexy body and and more abs that you can show on Instagram. A fitness program should be about training the person to have a more well-rounded understanding of their own body. And the complexity is what requires technique, which changes, neurological changes are required for those things. So we want things complex because it builds and strengthens our mind and our brain and allows us to do things we previously couldn't, like move our body through space more intelligently. So the complexity is valuable because it's complex. It shouldn't be something that should be strayed away from. It should be walked towards, but walked towards with the understanding that it's complex, and you scale it back to meet somebody where they're at. And any coach who's worth their salt at all can do that on a very, very basic level with any athlete and any movement. Now, it might be hard for her, and I think she describes that in a second. It might be hard for her to coach these things, but I also probably guess that she hasn't had to coach these things to normal people. She has chose not to coach these things to normal people because they are difficult for her to coach. And the things that we don't do, we're not good at. So if you tried to do this and coach normal people through these things and scale it way back, you will get better at doing that. And the only way to do that is to do that. And yeah, let's jump back in again.
And not only are you making them sort of accessible to the masses, which there are parts of that I like, but parts of it I really don't. For this reason, if we made those things accessible to the masses, then we would have to defer to the expertise of the coach. Like, I would never in my wildest dreams go out and try to teach an Olympic lift. And I have taken probably at least 20 separate training sessions from people who specialize in Olympic lifts just so I can understand it, get the benefits of it. And I wouldn't even dare to attempt to teach it because it's so technical.
So her argument is that it's very technical again, and she's taken these 20, which is a pretty low number of sessions from specialists. And the thing is, specialists are specialists. They love what they do, and they love it so much that they get wrapped up in every little detail. And I think that the best specialists and the people who've spent time delivering these to non-athletes, delivering it to normal people, have developed ways of giving this to the masses to where people can understand it at a very basic level. And I think what happens is she's an athlete, and I actually don't know her athletic background, but I know she's fit and she does training and stuff. But I guarantee you someone's going to speak to her a little differently because they think that, she can take it on board really easily because she's an athlete. You can pull any of these movements back far enough to where you can deliver them in a way that very unathletic, classically people can understand the basics of the movement within a single training session with no loads and pretty much zero risk of injury. It's when you start moving faster and adding load that things get sketchy, but you don't do that, and you don't do that until somebody's ready, and that is on the coach's shoulder, but that's why people pay a coach. But let's get into it a little more.
And with something like CrossFit, you can get a certification. The barrier to entry is like this. I mean, when you're teaching somebody gymnastics, you're teaching somebody Olympic lifts, my hope is that you are an absolute pro, the consummate expert, no matter who you're instructing, be it
So it's fun. It's so the argument she makes about there being a very low barrier to entry to getting your level 1 certificate. It's true. There is a low barrier to entry. It's essentially you go to a 2-day course. It's a course that I would teach, but and it's not so much about making you perfect at teaching that stuff, because the funny thing is, like she's saying, you would hope that somebody who's teaching it is an absolute expert at teaching it, but how do you become an absolute expert at teaching something? You don't just study a bunch of books and then do that. You go out and you teach it. So the thing that I think she's overstating is that there's varying degrees of how you teach something, and there's varying degrees of every movement. And, you know, even within something like the Olympic lifts, like take the movement like the snatch. You know, it is a movement where you take it from the ground, you put it up overhead in one motion, you catch in the bottom overhead squat. A lot of those positions don't work for people. A lot of those mechanics don't work for people, but you can pull that all the way back to having a dowel or a PVC pipe at your waist and working a muscle snatch, just pulling your upper body through that motion, which is essentially kind of an upright row to a turnover and a punch. And that can be your basic thing for the day. So you can pull anything back in its complexity. And that's stressed pretty heavily across that 2-day seminar. And if you want to offer criticism towards that's 100% okay. Like, that was part of what made CrossFit grow the way it did, and what made the number of coaches who wanted to help people get in the game. Because it was such a low barrier to entry, you got a lot more people in there. Now, you could say that also waters down the quality, but generally the way that sorts itself out is people who are bad coaches, they don't keep coaching. They stop because people don't want to come to them, and they don't continue to create a following. But that can be said for somebody who goes through all the schooling as well. The schooling doesn't make you a good coach. It just gives you the education to where maybe you can avoid some of the pitfalls, and you have a little bit more behind the why, and why something really truly works. So yeah, let's keep going.
Olympic athletes, or God forbid, you know, the average bear who just wants to go to a workout class. So those are my top 2 things. My third is, I really don't want to understand the trainer logic. I don't get it. It has yet to be explained to me in a way that I really understand. Now, obviously there are some incredible coaches that do have a CrossFit body.
I don't know what she means by the trainer logic. I'm going to assume that she means the programming. Like, she doesn't understand CrossFit, like why people do the workouts and the movements that they do. This is an hour-long lecture at the CrossFit Level 1 that's called What is CrossFit? And there's a supporting lecture to that called What is Fitness? And she hasn't attended a Level 1, obviously. She doesn't, like, it's the base level of entry for like speaking on the subject. And again, she's taking it anecdotally from the people she's met who do say they understand it, who maybe can't articulate it in a way that she's getting. And so let me see if I can really quickly summarize those 2 lectures. CrossFit has defined fitness differently than it has been defined in the past. And essentially, fitness, as defined by Greg Glassman, is work capacity across broad time and modal domains. Work capacity is a human being's ability to output power across broad time, means any time frame, whether it's outputting power across a short time frame or a long time frame or a medium time frame. And modal domains means activities. So can you output power, which means do work, in any time frame and any activity? That's fitness. And your fitness levels are higher when you can do more power, more activities, and more time frames. So the goal of CrossFit is to constantly pursue this idea that we want to be able to output more power across more time frames and across more activities. So what we do is we do a bunch of activities at multiple different time frames, and we take this power component and we look for ways to produce high power, because high power movements give more change. They elicit more physiological adaptations, it said, so physical changes. So CrossFit is defined as constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensities. Constantly varied is basically talking about doing a bunch of different movements. Functional movements are referring to movements that produce high power, because high power allows us to have good, quick physical changes. And high intensity, basically that means you're going to be doing movements that produce high power again, which elicits the change faster. And again, high intensity is relative to the movement and relative to the individual. It doesn't mean you just smash yourself in the face with the board all day, every day. But I can understand how it would seem like that, not having gone to a level 1, not having participated in a facility or in a gym, or really taken the time to get to hear it from the source or from a person who understands it. So if I take 2 lectures that are really long and condense them down into one thing, essentially I'm saying we use CrossFit, constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity, to basically make us more fit as per the definition of work capacity across broad time and modal domains. You use a bunch of different movements at a bunch of different time frames and generally with higher levels of intensity to get you better at a bunch of different movements at a bunch of different levels of intensity, or sorry, a bunch of different time frames, and you get the results quicker because it's at a higher level of intensity. That's the basics of it. That might not make sense, but Jillian, if you want to, I'm happy to give you the 2-hour lecture if you would like. Let's keep going though.
There is a guy named Kelly Starrett who I worship and think he's a genius. He wrote a book called Supple Leopard. The guy is brilliant. I read his book cover to cover.
Kelly is brilliant. Kelly's a wonderful human. Kelly is an amazing guy. Yeah, let's keep going.
3 times. And made him a friend because I am such a fan of his work, but not everybody.
I made him a friend because I'm such a fan of his work. That's the only reason I make someone a friend. Anyway, keep going.
He is Kelly Starrett. In fact, most aren't.
But Kelly Starrett owned a CrossFit gym. And Kelly Starrett had it for a long time. And all of his coaches, they were not Kelly Starrett either. They're people who are really well-intentioned, who need time to go in and train people and get better at training people. And in this case, under the watchful eye of Kelly Starrett. And it baffles me how you can't see the fact that, like, just because one person's a good coach and they have a gym, and it doesn't mean that other people can't also be really good at delivering this material just because they're not famous. It's bizarre. Okay.
So when it comes to CrossFit programming, while I gather it has now sort of evolved into 3 days on, 1 day off, I still don't understand.
So CrossFit didn't evolve into 3 days on, 1 day off. If you go back to the very first time CrossFit.com was posted, there's a website. It has all this information. It's called CrossFit.com. If you look back in the workout archives, it's been 3 days on, 1 day off since 2001, I do believe. But that also doesn't mean that CrossFit is 3 days on, 1 day off. 3 days on, 1 day off was a suggested training schedule by Greg Glassman because he found that you got the most benefit from going hard for 3 days and then resting for a day, going hard for 3 days, resting for a day. And it seemed to make the most sense for the athletes he worked with and how to let them recover. There are plenty of people who break this mold and, they'll train with whatever their life trains with. So they'll train 5 days, rest 2 days. Some people train 6 days, rest 1 day. Some people do 2 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. There's all kinds of things out there. I don't understand what she meant by it evolved into 3 days on, 1 day off.
And the programming, to me, CrossFit is exercising, but it's not about having a plan, having a training specific program, and then progressing that plan. To me, it seems like beating after beating after beating after beating, unless something has changed. So
if I go back to the definition of CrossFit and I go back to the definition of fitness, there is a plan. And just because you haven't done it long enough to understand that, that's okay. Just because it also doesn't follow a plan that's like a classic periodization plan where it's like, you know, we're going to excel in these places for this 6 months and then we're going to switch on to this thing. Doesn't mean there's not a plan. It follows a plan of variance, and variance is what we use to get us good at as many things as possible. And when we're training athletes in CrossFit, we're not training them for a specific event or a specific sport. We're just training them to be more competent at what life gives them. So in order for us to do this, we vary things up, like the movements, the time domains, the rep ranges, the loadings that they're doing, all those kinds of things are varied so that no matter what they face in life, they can tackle that. And there is an intended plan across like a macro level. If you look across a year or across a month, you're looking to vary things to where people are not doing the same things over and over again, and they're getting as much exposure to different types of fitness, so that way they can perform in different types of fitness. Now, is it the same as like, we're gonna spend 5 weeks here, do this, have our gain session, and then go to this? No, it's not like that, because that's not how the world works. That's not how, you know, when we go out and we're a firefighter, we don't know what we're going to have to do. So the idea is that, you know, by doing a little bit of everything with the intended plans for variance, that over time we'll get better at everything slowly. And it's been proven time and time again, both anecdotally in the gym and through a few different studies. There's a doctor, I'll ping him right here. He's doing a bunch of studies on it right now. So it's silly to say that you've trained. I mean, you've only done Olympic lifting like 20 times from sessions, but you've probably only done CrossFit like 5 times or something. Let alone from somebody who was like, and stuck to it from a person who understood what they were doing for any given period of time. So it's like, of course you're not going to see what's going on. Like, you could take any training plan, and if you did 1 or 2 days of it, you'd be like, well, what are they trying to do? I mean, maybe some would be a little bit more clear, but I don't know. It just seems pretty narrow-minded. Let's keep going.
I was instructed to do a CrossFit workout with an old friend. We did 10 box jumps, 1 burpee, 9 box jumps, 2 burpees, all the way down the ladder. By the time I was done, my shoulders were killing me. I jammed the hell out of my toe from all those burpees, and my form was a mess. And I was like, what is the logic here? Other than just me being exhausted? No answer.
What is the logic here? Okay, so did the person you say that to not have an answer for that? And is it hard to pick apart that? So you got a burpee, like very long time running fitness move, pretty horrific. Now, the beauty of a burpee is that you can always kind of keep going. In addition to that, it's pretty full body. Like, as far as taking the body through a range of motion, it's a huge range of motion. It's really hard. Now, what you have in this is you've got a box jump where you're jumping on a box up and down. Definitely different ways you can do this. Again, you're probably an athlete, so you were jumping up and jumping down. You could always step up. You could make the box lower. You could scale it back. A burpee can always be scaled back to a kickback, where you just kind of kick your feet back and stand back up. Or you can do a knee push-up in it. And if you're looking for what the purpose behind it was there, is that's a tricky way of you getting to think about the rep scheme while maintaining a relatively high level of intensity through 2 body weight movements. So your power output for that workout would have been relatively high because you can stay moving. Burpee kind of taxes one thing. Both are metabolic conditioning tools, burpees and box jumps, so you probably suck in some serious wind. But you're going to notice that your body fatigues in a different way. Once you're done with the burpees, you can kind of do the jumps okay. And then once you're done with the jumps, you're a little bit more fresh for the burpees in terms of muscularly. So the back and forth there was they were slightly complementary things. Now, if you jammed your toes in the ground on the burpees, like, come on, man. Really? Like that's what you were worried about? And your shoulders were sore because you did 55 push-ups? I think that's a 10 factorial, 10, 8, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ends up being 55. Like, yeah, like maybe you've never done that. Maybe you're used to doing something different and you're not used to intensity. So when you do something like that, like your shoulders are sore. What are you banged up? It's a push-up. Like, you're in the fitness industry. Look at your shoulders. That's the thing, is like with CrossFit, we're training to be able to do stuff. Looking good naked is a side effect. A lot of other training is about having a six-pack or losing that fat or whatever it is, which I find such a shitty motivator. I mean, it's a great motivator for some people, but man, what a vapid thing to chase. Chase being able to accomplish tasks. Tell me jumping up on a box isn't chasing being able to jump up on a box, being able to jump over something, being able to chase your kids. Tell me doing a burpee isn't you avoiding the nursing home by being able to lie on the ground and get back up. I don't care what age you're at, you should be able to lie down and get back up. And shit, if you can do it 55 times, 10 factorial, that means you're pretty far away from not being able to do it one time. Sorry, don't know why I'm getting flustered by Jillian Michaels. Let's go, keep going. Sorry that she banged her toes.
Again, teach me the logic. I want to know the logic, but there's no logic to that. I don't understand that. On top of which, speaking of trainer logic, when you have exercises that are so technical, like Olympic lifts or gymnastics, why are you doing them for time? So when you say, oh, we're going to do this really technical move, but we're going to do as many reps as we can for time, these are really dangerous things to be doing.
Oh, okay. So she has some criticism about whether or not, why are you taking technical movements and doing them for time? So what time does, and what starting a timer does, is it puts intensity higher. When you go faster, if you do so if you have the equation for power, if you got work, the amount of work you do divided by the time it takes you to do it, that's how you get average power in physics. So if you make the time faster and you do the same amount of work, so you make the time faster on the bottom and the work is the same, you have a higher power. So by doing things for time, you prompt people to move faster, which, yes, is the intention. Now, complexity faster, why do you do complexity faster? Is because complexity should be always done at somebody's skill level. So you can pull something back to where it's less complex, but still have them able to do it. Now, in addition to that, when you start to move and break down and you get more tired, that is the role of the coach. The role of the coach is to step in and make sure that you move well. And with more complex movements, generally they're going to be lighter in load and they're going to be scaled to whatever variation that you're able to do. But the value in them is that you're having to focus and maintain body positioning and all these fun little pieces in a fatigued state, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but happens in the real world. It happens in sport. It happens in the, firefighting and police officer work, in military, in taking your kids to school, in all of these things in life. You get to fatigued states and you're asked to perform. So if you can start to train your body to do these things without thinking and make it second nature, that's going to benefit you in life. So why are you asking people to do complex things at speed? It's because they're complex and we want you to be better at working out complexity and paying attention to your body and working through things when you're tired. And that's okay, as long as they're scaled back and you have a coach watching you and you build some awareness and you take some personal responsibility, all these life things. But I understand from an outside point looking in that it's hard to understand. Let's keep going.
For time. It's not an air squat, right? It's not as many push-ups as you can do, oh, by the way, with good form, and your form becomes compromised. By the time I was on the 10-to-1, like burpee 1,575, I was a mess. I looked like crap. My form was falling apart.
It was burpee 55, but
it wasn't focused. So that's another part that I don't understand, taking modalities that are so intense and so technical and doing them for time. That doesn't personally make sense to me. In another time I saw Greg Glassman, who was the original founder, talking about how he didn't believe in muscle splits. I don't know if that's changed, but muscle splits are when you say, okay, I'm going to train certain muscles on certain days, and then I'm going to let them rest while I train other muscles on other days so that I can get optimal recovery. Now, you might build in a rest day after 3 days of CrossFit, which wasn't a thing 5 years ago when I had friends that were obsessed with it, but it is now, as far as I can tell. But if you don't believe in muscle splits...
She, like, literally hasn't paid attention for the whole time. And she's gone based off of what friends say. And, like, I understand the reasoning to do that. I understand why you might want to do that. But, like, that's a really bad place to make a judgment from. Like, if you want to actually have a conversation about something or understand anything, you have to research the other side. You have to... If you have the question of why, like, don't just throw that out into nature and be like, why? No answer. Looks like there's no reason. Like, you have to find someone who's from the source, or find somebody who is passionate about it, who you do respect. Ask Kelly Starrett, your friend. Unless it really is not Kelly Starrett and you have this other last name person you keep saying.
And you're killing yourself as hard as you are in CrossFit day 1. Then you're going to go do it again day 2. Then you're going to do it again day 3. And the exercises are pull up, push up, sit up, squat, wall ball, battle rope. Like, we're not saying we're doing push muscles on Monday and we're going to let them rest for a few days. So if you're doing the same exercises for 3 days in a row, I don't understand that training plan.
Yeah, so if you're doing the same exercises for 3 days in a row all the time, then you effed up. Like, you like, remember when I talked about the variance thing? Like, variance is an intended plan and guideline for creating a well-rounded athlete. If you're doing the same exercises all the time, you screwed up. You literally have thousands of movements to choose from and tons of different planes of movements. So it's like, why would you find yourself doing that? You either had really silly friends, or you just weren't paying attention, or you only came on days that you liked and you're like, that looks like fun, I'll do that. And you just missed the days that you didn't. Now, is it true that you will find days where you do the same thing a couple days in a row? For sure. But that's okay. The human body is not only incredibly resilient, but it's not like you use it one time and it's like, nope, can't use that again tomorrow. Like, that's freaking silly. Like, think about, like, a trainer, like any sport that is a single modality, like swimmers or sprinters or gymnasts or football players. And you're like, okay, well, yesterday, coach, we played a bunch of football. We did some drills. What are we going to do today? You're going to play a bunch of football and you're going to run some drills. Or sprinters. Hey, coach, we sprinted yesterday. Well, what are you going to do today? We can't sprint again. Well, I think we're going to sprint again. Are you kidding me? Now, if you're looking at the bodybuilding space where you're looking for hypertrophy and you're looking for a certain type of growth, there can be an argument made to where you'd want to balance stuff out to where you're only working stuff when it's optimally recovered and you're trying to tear it down and you're breaking it up for size. But again, if you're looking for shape and form, that's your only pursuit, that's shallow. You need to pursue what you can do. And the human body can do a lot. The idea that you can't do the same thing a couple days in a row is absolutely absurd. Let's keep going.
And I don't understand it. And to me, when you train in particular as hard as you do in a CrossFit workout, you need time to recover. So I wouldn't want to do a workout that hammered my back or my chest and then hit those muscles again the next day or even a third day in a row. I'll be honest with you, every friend I have who was into CrossFit had a serious injury. Serious, whether it was a heart attack or a shoulder issue or you name what. Personally, I've known probably 7 people over the last decade who were really into it. All 7 are no longer doing it for those reasons. Not to say you can't be a CrossFitter and be in great shape, but it depends on the quality of your coach.
Now, I would say that there is a certain inherent risk to something like CrossFit that provides a certain feeling. And that inherent risk is there's an addictive quality to it, to where you can become addicted and you can overdo it. It's absolutely like anything that provides you with that feeling, you can overdo it. And I think that people do become addicted. I think that people fill an addictive place within their hearts. And a lot of these people who get into CrossFit and, find it and use it as their outlet, they do have like an addictive background. And you can fill that space with fitness, and you can fill that space with high intensity work, and you can not let yourself recover, and you cannot do these things. But that's not a problem with CrossFit. That's That's a problem with the people who are using it. And that's a problem with your interpretation of how you approach those things. And so what I would say is like, yeah, man, like you need to monitor yourself, but more importantly, you need to find a really good coach who gives a massive shit about you. And there's hundreds, if not, and thousands of gyms out there right now that have people who care so much about their members that they're going to know every little ache and pain that's going on in their body. And they're going to be able to be like, hey, you need to take a rest day, and hey, you need to do these things. And yes, if you smash yourself in the face over and over again for years on end, you're probably going to get hurt. But that's not the majority by any means. That's not even like, it's not even like an active minority. Like when you look statistically at the data of people doing CrossFit, and there's now fun studies out there. Again, I'll tag Dr. Fella here. You can figure out it's just straight up false. Like the injury rates she's talking about here, 7 out of 7, just don't do it. And it's just like straight up false. I'd also argue that the people in her circles are probably relatively obsessive when it comes to fitness or that kind of output, just because that's who she associates with. She's not meeting the housewives and the soccer dads and all these other things, the normal people who are using this day in and day out to live better lives. But that's okay. Like, moving on.
Athlete that is engaged in that modality, right? So for me, look, I love that people love CrossFit. I love that they love working out. I love that they love the community it provides. But I wouldn't even want somebody doing a yoga workout every day. I wouldn't want you running every day or 3 days in a row, crazy running workouts. This is where, personally, I would say if you love it, great. Find an unbelievable coach. And honestly, I think for CrossFit, you need somebody with a degree. Your coach should have a degree in exercise science. I would not be screwing around with Olympic lifts and gymnastics and all these really advanced modalities unless you've got somebody who knows.
All right, you got some exercise scientists out there. How much does your exercise science degree make you a better coach when it comes to Olympic lifting and all these other modalities she's talking about? How much do you use the degree? How much does that come into play when you're delivering the information to normal people? Nothing. I mean, not at all. Like, there's no practical in an exercise science degree. There's very little practical. And there's nothing, I'm not saying don't get that degree. I'm just saying, like, that's a bullshit statement. Straight up bullshit statement that you need that in order to be a good coach. That doesn't even mean that you're a good coach. That doesn't even mean you're a mediocre coach. In order to be a good coach, you have to coach. You have to be in there coaching people. And you have to be coaching normal people, not athletes who come into the gym looking to be slightly better than they normally are. You have to coach people who walk in off the streets and have sat behind a computer for frickin' the last 20 years of their life and have never, ever done an air squat. Like, those are the people who make you a better coach. And the only way to find those people is to start coaching and be bad and start small and make yourself better. This is an asinine statement. That is so not true, what she just said. I understand the intention behind it, but it's just freaking false.
How to modify and program those workouts for the athletes in their class. And I wouldn't do it more than twice a week. Twice a week is good, with at least 2 days off between sessions. So you know, at the very least, you are programming solid.
If you train 2 days on, 2 days off, you're going to be so sore all the time. The continued exposure helps you adapt to where you're not sore. But if you do what she just said, you're going to be very sore every time you do it. Just because the nature of high intensity training is that it hits your system pretty hard. And that's okay as long as you start to adapt and become used to it. If you do 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off, that is not an ideal. Like, that's why the 3 days on, 1 day off was kind of a better one. When you train a day after something, you work through some of the soreness. You work through DOMs. And yeah, obviously you can't go as hard, but you're not intended to because you can't. Like, you just physically can't because you're tired and sore. So yes, recovery is important. Absolutely find an ideal recovery schedule, but that's a bad one when it comes to doing high intensity movement. It might be good for hypertrophy and doing just bodybuilding stuff, but that's not what we're looking for in CrossFit.
Recovery, if you're going to train that hard. So those would be my personal recommendations. Is if you love it, don't do it more than twice a week. Separate the days. Make sure your coach is top quality if you're going to engage in a modality that advanced. And I mean, this is my personal opinion. Sorry if you don't agree with me. Not here to bash anyone. But that's where I fall on it.
Cool. Fall on your sword there, Jilly. Okay. Here's what a top-notch coach is. If she says go out and find a top-notch coach. Find a top-notch coach means find somebody who, when you walk into their gym, they smile at you, they look at you, they walk up, they get to know you, they listen to your background, and they have an on-ramp program that gets you into classes in a way that you start to understand the basic movements. Now, what a coach means is they're going to elicit change in your movement when you communicate with them. They remember your name. They remember stuff about you. They engage in things more than just the, hey, drive your knees out or drop a little deeper. They basically get to know you. And a top-notch coach is one who cares. One who cares enough to know who you are. And that's what we're looking for. That's what you want to find in a gym. If you can find that, thumbs up. Because that one is going to be willing to grow. That one's going to be willing to pay attention closer and closer, go out and invest in their own education, continue to develop their cues, start to get to know you. And you also have to find a coach, what's a good one, that is going to hold you accountable. And that means that doesn't let you get away with bad movement. That doesn't let you get away with shorting the range or counting less reps. And it doesn't need to be in a mean way. A good coach is somebody who cares enough to hold you accountable and to be there with you and to watch you and to elicit change. A teacher is somebody who just speaks at you. A coach is somebody who gets in there and elicits change. So find one of those. Yes, absolutely. I would agree with her there. Find one. But I think her definition is wrong. Jillian, you don't understand this. And it's weird that you would choose to speak on this. I understand it confronts you and what you do. But like, you work with such an elite small percentage of the population when it comes to the actual people you work with. Not your little online programs that you put out there, but like your actual one-on-one interactions that you have. And who knows, maybe you're really good at that. I'm not going to speak to what you're really good at because I don't know. Like, I don't know what you're really good at. And I would never say, oh, Jillian sucks at X, Y, and Z. All I can base it off is what I've seen. And I think that that's just a small snippet. You might be a great person. You might do all a lot of things great, but you don't understand CrossFit. And I don't think you want to. If you did want to, you'd find somebody who understood it and have a conversation with them. Kelly Starrett's a good guy. I mean, he'll have his beef with certain components within CrossFit, but man, that guy understands. Have a conversation with him. Ask him to really sit you down and have that convo. If you want to have it with me, I'm happy to. I'm just south of him. I'm in Santa Cruz. So, yeah. I don't know why I felt I had to do that, but here we go.